Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can we have a moment of silence, please? Roll call.
Council President Chamberlin.
Present.
Councilor Briggs.
Here.
Councilor Heisey.
Here.
Councilor Schneider.
Here.
Councilor Steers.
Here.
We have 5 members present. We have a quorum.
Okay, great. Well, council has had quite a bit of time. Welcome back to council, actually. It's been, I think, 6 weeks since I've been here, so it's good to be back and grouped, and I want to thank our department heads for being here, too. You have all had time to look over the prior meeting's minutes.
I don't know if we're gonna get this done. Harold's usually.
Yeah, no, Harold's not
Oh,
here.
we may be stuck. We might have to just sit on it. Anybody?
I'll make that motion.
Oh, thank you.
I'll second it.
Motion to approve the prior meeting minutes was moved by Councilor Briggs and seconded by Councilor Steers. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And we did have Doug Ballmer coming in, but obviously, for obvious reasons, he's not here, which I will be adding under new business, a little bit of discussion of some of those from the community that was lost this week. So if he calls another time to come back, we'll wait and see on that, but today that's not going to happen. And it was just recent, and Brooke didn't change she didn't feel it had to change in a short notice. So we're going to move on to our committee reports. And we have a finance committee meeting, which was a long one,
Yep.
from Steve Schneider.
Yep, I'll try and keep this as short as possible. Shane, Sarah, and myself were present, along with Jamie Jagger, Mary Huner, Tom McWaters, Keith Torbett, Kevin Chittenden, Rick Suter, and Brooke Baumgartner. And the first matter was the EMS contracts. Chief Suter and Tom McWaters were present to discuss those. They include a primary coverage area, a central station operations contract. Chief Suter shared that these contracts will give Wauseon a little over $1 million per year for the term of both agreements. Some of this money would be used to keep 2 advanced life support units in service, among other items. And also with this contract, Wauseon will also be responsible for all billing and will retain 100% of the billing proceeds. Operationally, everything else will remain the same. There was some just general discussion, and motion was made and seconded that we accept the EMS contracts. Anybody have any questions on that?
Yeah, I asked our department heads to come in, since we didn't have the committee of the whole meeting. If you have any questions before we would vote on this, that they're here to answer any of those questions. I think all of you did have the contract to read, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. That does help quite a bit.
Okay.
Anything for Rick? Okay. Good.
The next one was to amend the budget. Chief Sluter shared that after the EMS contracts are in place, there was a need to convert approximately 430 part-time hours to full-time hours to fulfill staffing needs. And to implement this, Jamie would need to increase the general fire wages fund by $9,500 and the general fire benefits fund by $15,000. Also, Chief Chittenden proposed switching the records dispatch software from the current CMI software to Stoma Global software. He shared that the main benefit of switching to the new system is it would link the police, fire, and sheriff's departments all together Other benefits include advanced technology, mapping features, voice recognition, text 911, and crime analysis. To switch over to this system, Jamie would need to increase the general police supplies fund by $25,000. And she shared that she received a PO request for the ambulance. The cost of the ambulance is $10,000 over the estimated cost. The ambulance also needs a power cot system installed, which costs $50,000. So Jamie would need to increase the capital EMS equipment fund by $60,000. And my own insert here, correct me if I'm wrong, but last one took about 2.5 years to recover the cost, right?
Yeah, if you went from the revenue from the patient transfer, paid, yeah.
Yeah, about
We'll fund that.
2.5 years we get that money back. Okay, and
And she was doing that at like a 50/50. She was putting 50% of the revenue into the operating and 50% into capital.
yeah. And then the capital income tax fund EMS equipment had to be increased. Unappropriated capital income was decreased by a similar amount. And then I made a motion, and Councilor Heising seconded, to recommend the city amend the budget to increase $49,500 out of the general fund account and $60,000 out of the capital fund account. It sounds like a lot, but when we said we're going to get that recovered, and the technology with the new system for the police department sounds pretty impressive to tie it in with share from everybody else.
The only thing I didn't hear added in that is the information storage issue, like that we wouldn't have to pay, you know what I mean? You were gonna have to increase the storage amount. So, you know, that new system wouldn't have that issue.
Right, 'cause
Yeah.
this one is a cloud-based, and plus we'd be able to use our existing servers for quite some time as well on that.
I just think that's an important thing for people to know.
Yes, good.
That's a
Thank you.
good point.
So after that, rather lengthy, we adjourned at 5:50. So those issues are up, I believe, for first reading.
Does anyone else have any discussion? I do feel that these are going to have to be, like the EMS contract, should be separated from the amend the budget and the, from Chief Sluter and Chief Chittenden from the general fund, just because that is two separate things there. But other than that, do you have any other questions?
My only generic question is, I know you guys have put a lot of work into dealing with everybody. I mean, are we happy with the results of our contract? I mean,
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's maybe not perfect, but pretty good.
Well, yeah, I mean, you never go into
Exactly.
negotiation getting everything you want.
Exactly.
But, we're happy, and we'll be able to operate just fine.
Good.
And I think with the new amounts and the patient billing that's been pretty steady for the last several years,
Good.
we should be in good shape to maintain.
I know you guys put a lot of work into it, and just, it's good to know that we're satisfied, I guess, at
Yeah,
this,
I
so.
think we'll be okay.
Okay, good deal. Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, then can we get a motion to move on the EMS funding?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion to accept the Finance Committee recommendation to accept the EMS contracts was moved by Counselor Steers and seconded by Counselor Griggs. Any discussion? Council President Chamberlain?
I would abstain due to my employment with the county.
Counselor Schneider?
Yes.
Counselor Griggs?
Yes.
Counselor Heising?
Yes.
Counselor Steers?
Yes.
4 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. And that would be EMS contracts, not funding, as I put forward. Okay, and then the second matter of the Finance Committee would be to amend the budget.
I'll make that motion.
A second.
Motion to accept the Finance Committee recommendation to amend the budget was moved by Counselor Schneider and seconded by Council President Chamberlain. Is there any discussion? Counselor Schneider?
Yes.
Council President Chamberlain?
Yes.
Counselor Griggs?
Yes.
Counselor Heising?
Yes.
Counselor Steers?
Yes.
5 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries.
Great, thank you. right, moving on for first reading legislation. Ordinance 2021-7 is an ordinance authorizing the annexation of real property to the city of Wauseon.
I'd make a motion to accept the first reading of ordinance 2021-7.
I'll second it.
Motion to put ordinance 2021-7 on first reading and the first reading be passed was moved by Council President Chamberlin and seconded by Councilor Griggs. Any discussion?
Yeah, I got a question. I mean, it's been a while. Are we talking about the trail? Is that what we're?
Yeah.
Okay, how far out do we go out that way?
So out west, it goes up to, I think it goes up to 28, where it's, where our ownership stops.
Okay, there's no concern like Dave's.
There is
Sand and stone.
there is a concern about how to handle that. But I think we decided in the law department to get the annexation taking place, and then I think we're gonna reach out to that entity and try to reach an accommodation of that issue. And the issue, for those of you who may not be familiar, the trail goes right through, or separates, I guess is the right way to say, two parcels owned by, I forget the actual entity, but it's Dave Sand and Stone, I guess is the common name. And they're utilizing is essentially the path. But a long time ago, before we took possession of the property, the city did, the Cannonball Trails folks had a working agreement with the entity that they would allow that to continue as long as Dave Sand and Stone took care of a path that went up and around the Dave Sand and Stone area. And they've actually, I went out and visited the site several weeks ago, and they actually, it's very nicely kept. It's stoned, and you can kind of see where it goes, and there's no interruption in the path. It's just, it's not the actual path that we own. So I think some understanding has to be reached in writing. I don't think anything is officially ever, best I can tell from the history, was ever formalized. There's a survey dating back to like the late 90s, I think, that Dave Maxon had done, but nothing was ever formalized. So I think the two issues are kind of separate, but we certainly need to resolve that issue with that entity in terms of what the legal understanding is.
Nice job. I mean, it is a nice path behind there.
Yeah.
But I just didn't know about, something happened if who was
Well,
responsible.
that's, so I think, well, the problem is that the city can't, I mean, the easy solution would be to say, we'll just trade you the path through for the workaround, but by the terms of the restrictive covenant, we can't transfer any interest in the trail. Now, one way possible workaround, which we've talked about, is to go back to the Wabash people who signed the property over and get them to agree to waive that if they're able to do that. Because I think it would make sense. I mean, it's a nice workaround, it's well taken care of. But there's just, like I said, there's nothing official, formally in writing. But the annexation issue, so what we're annexing is the current path that actually goes through Dave Sand and Stone.
Okay.
Which is ours.
Which is ours, right. Yeah, I don't know, is that?
No, that does. I did notice that the path behind us, they kept it up real nice.
Yeah,
I just was kind of wondering about the liability of something.
well, and I guess I failed to mention that as part of any sort of legal documentation, if in fact we couldn't just swap the properties, then I think we'd want to get some sort of indemnification or hold harmless language. I mean, if anything ever happened on that, there was like a work accident or something that happened on that stretch of property that the city owns, would the city somehow be involved in that? I'd like to think not, but, in today's litigious society, you just never know. So to dot the i's and cross the t's, that issue should be addressed eventually.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Right. Council President Chamberlain?
Yes.
Councilor Schneider?
Yes.
Councilor Gray?
Yes.
Councilor Heisler?
Yes.
Councilor Steer?
Yes.
5 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries.
Okay. Moving on to ordinance 2021-9, an ordinance authorizing the annexation of real property to the city of Wauseon.
I'd make a motion to accept the first read of ordinance 2021-9.
I'll second.
Motion to put ordinance 2021-9 on first reading and the first reading be passed was moved by Council President Chamberlin and seconded by Councilor Schneider. Is there any discussion? Council President Chamberlain?
Yes.
Councilor Schneider?
Yes.
Councilor Gregg?
Yes.
Councilor Heising?
Yes.
Councilor Steers?
Yes.
5 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Resolution 2021-11, a resolution to amend ordinance 2020-11, annual appropriation ordinance by authorizing the Director of Finance to increase or decrease certain line account appropriations within the various funds listed within the year of 2021.
I'd make a motion to accept the
I'm so glad you showed up today.
resolution of 2021-11.
I'll second it.
Motion to place resolution 2021-11 on final reading, moved by Council President Chamberlain and seconded by Councilor Steers. Is there any discussion? Council President Chamberlain?
Yes.
Councilor Steers?
Yes.
Councilor Schneider?
Yes.
Councilor Gregg?
Yes.
Councilor Heising?
Yes.
5 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries.
Okay, we have nothing under second reading and or third reading. I do have a few things under new business that I would need to bring forward. As you can see, we do have our lovely department head sitting across from you again. And Harold's not
I know, right?
here to witness it, but it's happening.
He's gonna think it's a
And,
conspiracy.
Take a picture.
Let's don't do it anymore.
Well, we talked now that it's back in the fall, that we would like to have the department heads show up for the first meeting of the month, which is not today. This is obviously the second meeting, second Monday. And then I feel like good discussion is being had in your committee of the whole as well, so that if they can do one at the beginning of the month and then possibly go to your committee of the whole, you could have questions, they can have, answers for you, and I think it would reach both sides. So we're gonna try and see if this could work, and of course Jamie couldn't be here for this one, so I apologize for that, but we are gonna move back to first Mondays of the month having department heads, and at the committee of the whole meetings, any questions you need prior to that, if you need them in there, please ask them to come in. They gladly answer those questions prior to that meeting as well. So, okay. And the second thing I wanted to bring forward is that we had an amazing fair. The weather was wonderful, the crowds were great, and of course the Fulton County and Wauseon supported our fair greatly. And I do want to thank our fire, our police, everybody that participated, anyone that had anything to do with Fulton County Fair to make it a good fair. Thank you so much for that, because being the second largest fair in Ohio is actually an honor for Wauseon. And Wauseon was mentioned around the community, outside of the community, and that is great. But with that week came some sadness as well. We lost 3 amazing community leaders. The first one that we lost was Toby Shehorn, and it's very dear to my heart. I had Toby's children in preschool, Brody and Evie. His father, Rick Shehorn, owns Eddie's Body Shop. His grandfather, they've been members of the community and very active. His wife, Jera, and Toby, if you ever needed anybody to help out with anything with WRA or anything, they were there. They were very active and supportive for the community. And that was a sad loss, and I also want to thank our fire department for doing everything that they could do out there. I heard you guys were very compassionate. Thank you for that. Karen Vollmer, her funeral was today. Karen, again, I spent many years with her. She started the Raggedy Ann and Andy in the mid-'80s. And one of the best things that ever happened to our community was a safety city for our children. For our young children who are going into kindergarten in the summer before, Safety City is to keep them safe from harm on the roads and getting on the bus, and that was Karen Ballmer. And not only did she work this program, she raised the funds for this program, which Keith was her huge advocate to bring forward for the city. And again, our fire, our police, anybody that would go in and help her with this were there. The little bicycles, the motorized equipment that they had, she did all of that. And they said over 3 decades she worked with children, and she was amazing. And she will be sadly missed as well in this community. And the last one I want to talk about is Mr. Kurt Cooley. Kurt lived in Fayette, but he taught in Wauseon. He taught for over 40 years. And Kurt was the type of teacher that, if we were just talking prior to, if you took science, you know, who taught you, and when you went to college, how was biology, how was physiology? Steve said it well. It was a piece of cake because we had Kurt Cooley. Not only did Kurt teach you well, but he also cared about his students. He cared about teaching, and he wanted to make sure that each and every one of them was taught in the proper procedure, just like Wauseon has some great teachers, but just sitting around. Rick, did you have Kurt? And
Yeah, I worked for him several years.
yeah, so very much so. Myself, I had him as a teacher. Freddie had him as a teacher. You had him as a teacher, and you worked with them. So, I mean, he's touched just all of these. Mike, you probably had him as a teacher as well. He was a great teacher, and I don't think anybody that walked out of his classroom said, you know, oh, I'll never use him. They all loved him because he cared. So 3 amazing people we lost this week, and with all the good that happened at the fair, you don't want to, you know, rain down on it, because it was a lot of great volunteers and beautiful weather and lots of fun. But please keep these people's families in your thoughts and prayers, because they will be missed. So I did want to say that, and I want to thank you guys for being back. So is anything else,
Can I-
Steve? Yes.
I had Toby as a student and a wrestler, he's a fine individual.
Mhm.
And then Karen, of course, I found something out the other day at the visitation, that she kept pictures of every one of her students. And then when they graduated, she would send them that picture
Yeah.
with a little article. I mean,
She
was.
messaged me this summer to ask, to make sure she had the right address, so she sent my son the flyer from their graduation at Safety City. She
Yeah,
sent
she
it to
was-
him since he graduated from high school.
She was devoted
Yeah,
to
to
that
the children,
job.
yeah.
And Kurt Cooley, God, I worked with him over 40 years, and he's quite the man.
Did he play for Ohio State? I had heard he played basketball for Ohio State.
I don't
I know he went there.
think so.
No, he was a really good county basketball player, but I don't think he
Yeah.
would play for
I-
us.
I
heard
had
so.
I had a comment, this was funny, from Marty Freese. Anybody knows Marty
Yes.
Freese? When he already died, he said, the first time I saw him, he said, a guy that wears nerd glasses. And he says, then I saw him play basketball in the gym, and he says, man, was he good.
And he played the flute, I read on the
Yeah,
obituary. Extra credit was if you can beat me on foul shooting. And
Yeah, he
they
was-
never got it, because he always won.
He's quite an individual, yes.
So-
He would reach out to my daughters after they graduated,
Yeah.
you know, even
He
good,
did.
when things
Yeah.
went good for him, went bad, he was always seemed to,
Well, not only
Gave
was
him
he a
a-
great teacher, but he was a great farmer. And
Yeah.
those who were in the agriculture or farming, he was huge with that. So, I mean, he just was.
did anybody get to drive in his RV?
I did.
The goes was, well, I thought we could have got blown off the road. It was-
But if you go on the funeral home's website,
Yeah.
there's tributes just pouring in from people all over the country who have had him as a teacher.
And Karen as well.
Yes.
I mean, at the
Yes,
students
it's-
and the people that she's touched. And Doug has a business in Wauseon, so both of them have
Yeah.
just reached out to this
When
community.
when my sister-in-law was inducted into the Hall of Fame at her college, he came all the way
Yes.
out there just
Yes.
for the ceremony.
I remember
Yeah,
that.
graduations, the
Yeah.
whole bit.
I remember
Okay,
that, yeah.
Good memories. Thank you, council.
He always had to tutor me in math, because my math teacher was a little shaky.
I like that.
I'm still working on it.
Okay, anything else before we pay the bills? Can we get a motion for that, someone besides Shane?
Please.
I'll make a motion to pay the bills.
No,
Okay,
somebody beat you to it.
Sarah,
Whichever way.
yeah,
It's fine.
Motion to approve and pay the bills as presented was moved by Counselor Schneider and seconded by Heising. Counselor Schneider?
Yes.
Counselor Heising?
Yes.
Council President Chamberlain?
Yes.
Counselor Gray?
Yes.
Counselor Steers?
Yes.
5 yeas, 0 nays, motion carries.
thank you. Can we have a motion for adjournment, please?
Before we get there, just want to thank the mayor for inviting her department heads to rejoin us in council. I think it's nice to have them around the table and just the feedback and the
Keith talked too much, but.
Keith, yeah.
I'll try and work on it, I'm kind of rusty.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Yep. I make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second it.
Motion to adjourn was moved by Council President Chamberlain and seconded by Counselor Griggs. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.